Hey everyone, Christian and I once again welcome you back to Mondays with Mindy.
Hi everybody, welcome back.
Today's episode features a conversation with an author and a philanthropist that also happens to be one of my most wonderful humans that is in my life. Holiday was born and raised in Portland and then moved to work and write in New York City. She's a graduate of the famed Iowa's Writers Workshop, recipient of a Carl Gerasi Fiction Fellowship. God, I hope I pronounced that right. The Tobias Wolff Award for Fiction and a PEN Amazon.com Short Story Award, among others. She is lauded, let me tell you, Christian. She's taught creative writing at the University of Wisconsin at Madison, the University of Iowa, and the UCLA Writers Extension Program. She's the author of Big Cats, Stories from the Free Press. It's also available as an audiobook with a lot of celebrity guest stars. Her fiction has been featured in numerous literary magazines and included in many an anthology. Most recently, one of her stories made the current edition of American Short Fiction, and another in the new issue of Narrative Magazine. And still another about her beloved Haiti can be found in the latest edition of Plowshares. Holiday has just turned in her newest collection of shorts to her editor, so we are eagerly anticipating its release early next year. In 2009, Holiday and her husband, actor Rainn Wilson, visited Haiti for the first time with the Mona Foundation and returned to facilitate a UN Foundation-funded program, Girls United. After the earthquake in 2010, that is. She's been committed to serving grassroots educational initiatives in the most remote areas of Haiti ever since. And along with her husband and Dr. Katherine Adams, co-founded the nonprofit educational organization, Liday Haiti. Holiday lives with and among her husband, Rainn, son, Walter, their dogs, Diamond and Poe, rescue pit bulls, pigs, Snorty and Amy, guinea pigs, Shogun and Lemon, donkey, Chili Bean, Zonky, Derek, and horses, Gus, Maeve, Bella, and Oberon in Southern California. Quite a menagerie that she has graced me with auntieship. So I'm very excited to have a conversation with her, Christian.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to welcome the highly lauded author to the show, Liday Reinhorn. Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome
to my home. Yes.
Why, thank you. And mine and Christian's.
And mine.
A three-way home. All
yes. Oh my
Great.
gosh. I love
Communal
it.
living on a whole new level.
I know, right? So we start each episode with 5 random questions out of our fabulous secrets jar. Here we go. Do a deep dive. Holiday. Oh, what's your guilty pleasure?
Oh, you're going to ask a fiction writer this. I think it's so get ready. Like all your other guests, you know what I mean? Now you're having the shy retiring. My guilty pleasure right now is not reading any contemporary fiction. Reading everything has to be at least 100 years old.
Oh.
And I'm reading Beowulf with my son. It's amazing.
Yeah, I read that.
That is gnarly.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Wow.
So we're watching The Power of Myth together, like the Joseph Campbell, and
Yes.
getting really doing all this stuff with myth and storytelling right now. And so that's kind of what I'm up to.
That's
kind of nice.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a really good
I'll
guilty
say.
pleasure.
It's a good guilty pleasure.
Yeah. And yes, you're absolutely correct. Something that none of our guests so far
have contributed.
Shared.
Right.
What's your favorite place to travel to and why?
Well, one of the things about Beowulf is that I'm from Denmark. You know, there's a whole Viking thing in my family, but I really love the northern. Here's the thing with me. I end up going to islands constantly. I end up in an island environment, and I end up on the northwest sector of the island. I do this not on purpose. It just ends up that I gravitate that way, maybe like a starling or something. But Haiti, I always dreamed of going to, and you know, my life has taken me. Maybe we'll talk about this in a second, but to the northwest area of that island, not purposefully.
Amazing.
And then like Iceland ended
Yes.
up in the north. You know, we weren't even supposed to take the camper up there, but we ended up in the northern, you know, and like broke the camper and didn't get our deposit back. And then
Yes.
like New Zealand, we ended up in the north area at this interesting place. So I don't know what it is. It's a magnetism or something, but
Wow, that
I
is
love
fascinating.
the northwest of a place, and it's usually has a lot of ghost stories in it. It just always ends up this sort of supernatural thing because I've always been obsessed with that. And so
And you
that's what
spend a lot of time in the Northwest of these United States.
well,
as
right, I
well.
was born in the Pacific Northwest. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then my Scottish relatives are from the Northwest. Like it's you go so far north and west. It's like next stop Reykjavik. It's
Amazing.
I don't know what it is with us. But
Okay, well,
yeah.
it is though. That's so okay.
That's kind of fascinating.
And bizarre.
Yeah,
I love
and I
it.
love that you
I want to know
identified
why.
that.
Like I want an answer. I'm so
I don't know.
yeah. I want to discover
maybe
that.
tribal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's sort of my life is all my family is from all over the place. It's sort of like the Humane Society or like animal control, like every kind of mutt or whatever in the cage, and we all mix together and all the Northwest. I don't know what it is.
Well, I for one am grateful, so I don't care
Mm.
how it happened. Among your friends, what are you best known for?
Well, usually I'm supposed to be known for the kind of sarcastic gnarly comment. The comment of the friendly dragon. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think I always look like the nice sort of girl from Pacific Northwest, and I have this sort of angelic, I'm told, I don't know, that reminds people of their sister, their best friend or something. And then something comes out of my mouth and it's more like
a zinger.
Like that. Yeah.
I love that.
I do too, and I can attest.
I can certainly agree.
Yes, you can, Christian. You're exactly the same. If you could have dinner with any three people, who would they be?
Yeah. Okay. So I would Isaac Mizrahi. He would be like my celebrity pass. And no, I absolutely love him, and I'll tell you why.
Well, we need to get you guys together. Period. Full stop.
I know, because I heard he likes my zonkey.
He's obsessed.
You know, he's
obsessed with Derek. No, he's obsessed with him. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for anyone just tuning in, that sounds wildly profane, but carry on.
Yes.
Well, so one of in my many sort of incarnations, I was, an aspiring actor in New York, and I had many jobs, and one of them was I worked at a restaurant near the UN. It was like a seafood restaurant. So during the day it would be diplomats, and at night it would be like the Chinese mafia and the underworld. And it was an incredible experience. It was like the Star Wars bar at night. And then, tax exempt brunches during the day from the ambassador of Egypt, and that was one job. And then the other one was working in the Fashion Ave, bringing lunch sandwiches to all of the studios. So I would go to Calvin Klein and Donna Karan, and I would sell them like a $1 cookie, and you know what I mean? And I was broke. And I just wore these big giant lumber boots with my dresses because I had to walk all over with my giant thing. And we were called sandwich hoes because we'd show up and they'd be like, what does the sandwich hoe have today? You know? And so
in the winter, there would be soups. And in the summer and fall, there'd be like just basic sandwiches and chocolate chip cookies. Yeah, I totally remember.
So I've sold him many a sandwich.
Yes.
I don't know if Isaac would remember me. But
no, I told him about it.
Okay.
I told him that. And he said, I never forget a face. Meanwhile, we'll get you two together for sure. Okay. So Isaac, who else?
Oh, Patti Smith. So Patti Smith for sure. And, I don't want to be stalkery, but normally I would, have my hair in braids, and I have her sweatshirt, and I'm so inspired by her as an artist, coming from, I mean, obviously, but just doing so many different things,
Yeah.
and cross-pollinating,
Yes.
and, her activism and her voice and her fiction and her poetry and her music and, all of that. When I was in drama school, I did the play that she originally performed in with Sam Shepard that was written for her. And Cowboy Mouth.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I've just been a long-term, admirer of her. And most recently, she said, I love the work that I did most between, age 57 and now. And
Yes.
that, of course, you know what I
Inspiring.
mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just the ability to be constantly, utterly fascinated with the world and be reinventing and looking at
And
new lenses all the
and feel a
time.
part of it as a creative, like plug yourself
Yeah.
into it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So just like the way she sees.
What
I
a
had
table
chance
so far.
It would be a good table. I was got to go to Davos before the pandemic, and I got to sleep in the Arctic base camp with a lot of the different climate scientists, and we all were in, sleeping bags and our, outfits. And we would go, during the day to things, but we couldn't take a shower, and the hotel wouldn't let us inside because we were, demonstrating essentially.
Right.
So all of the sort of politicians and things would come up and hear about climate change, and we would show them the ice cores, that show the CO2 and the levels and things. And so we were a mess.
Holiday, remind me, you were with Greenpeace, or do I have that wrong?
No, we were with this group called Arctic Base Camp. They're actually a nonprofit. Yeah. And they're made up of like a cohort of climate scientists led by this incredible woman named Gail Whiteman, who I would want at my table. So that's where I was going with this, is that she is this kind of preeminent voice for realistic, practical ways of, speaking to power, speaking science to power about, long-term change regarding, how to save our planet, basically. And the fact that like what's happening in the Arctic is not just staying in the Arctic, it's coming, as we're seeing in front of our face. So that would be a great conversation. I would like the three of those people.
I would like to serve you dinner so I could just sit and stand and listen.
I kind of want to be the catering team there.
I
know. Eavesdrop.
So maybe you just answered this last question. I don't know. I'm presuming. I shan't. Holiday, what scares you?
I just, for me, I love Georgia O'Keeffe because I love that she said, I've been terrified every minute of my life, but it never stopped me from doing anything I wanted to do. So I can get scared. I get scared a lot. Right now I'm scared of the lack of empathy in the world. I'm scared of that.
Yeah, me too.
Because I feel like everything's a spiritual fire drill right now. And like the maturity of the human race is what we're looking at, and it scares me. It scares me like people that won't wear a mask. Like just this idea that we only care about our own thing we want to do and our own immediate gratification. It's like, what is the purpose and the meaning of life, And I think that would be that everyone has a role to play, right? In bringing civilization forward. And the mask, no mask is like Dr. Seuss with the Sneetches,
right?
With the star and the
we're asked to do so little. Most of us are really not called to really anything too challenging at this juncture, And so that also is a bafflement to me. It's like, it's not difficult. It shouldn't be a hard thing to do. Yeah. I'm with you.
I mean, I feel like when that's gone, it starts to deplete very quickly. Do you know what I mean? I think
say that.
What's happening. So like we've got the pandemic, and then all of the the horrible like racial violence and everything just starts, it's always been there.
Right.
You know, the whole lack of empathy, all of the spiritual issues that human beings have always been there. But when this crisis comes, it just all starts compounding into a whirlwind.
Pandora's box.
So, you know, I really feel like the Beekman boys, you know, when they were talking about your neighbor.
Yeah.
Like
just the
right
person
now
next
is
door.
when we absolutely can. Everyone just do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's
well,
all.
Also really what resonates with me off of what you're saying is that whole adage that I'm hearing lately, which is you don't have to be Black to be outraged. I feel like you don't have to have had COVID to wear a mask. Right. You don't have to, like, we all should be feeling collectively all of this.
Yeah. Right. Participating.
Things that scare us are things that we don't understand, even if you have to listen for a while. Listening is an action. Take it from an actor, right? So like, even if all you do is listen, it's forward propulsion. So yeah.
But I do believe I want to be scared. I mean, because I think then you learn. That's how you're humbled. It's like, why does this scare me? Let me investigate it. And ultimately, it's what drives my creativity, because it's like what scares me. I get scared about things. Characters get scared about things, and I put them in fiction. There's a real jumping off point in terms of fear and urgency that has begun in all my stories.
So let me ask you. I love this question and I hate this question, and I still ask it and start every conversation with it a little bit, which is, what is your creative process as you define it? And if you don't identify with creative process, just the trajectory of, or what inspires you to start, or just, I'd like you to just share with us how you define it and what's yours.
Sure. So, you know, to me, the writer's life is so well summed up by this one story of Lori Moore, where she's like, in order to be a writer, you have to fail at everything else. You know,
it's like an actor.
It's just kind of like, I have done a million things and none of them really stuck. And I don't think failure, like, you know, the failure, just learned, just like found myself through it, you know, tried and kept trying and filled my sort of Mary Poppins grab bag with more and more experience, you know. And so writing in Spain, they called La Servitude. And it's just like a life that it's like a marriage, you know, whatever your writing apparatus is, whatever nourishes it, it changes over time. It might be sexy during a certain years. It might be hard. It might, you know, it changes. It's a long-term commitment. And so I feel like that really sustains me. Because over time, I just watch the different things that I get fascinated by change, but a few things stay the same. And one is that I always have to travel, like go to a new place. And that might mean down the street. It's not like I have to go, you know, completely halfway around the world, but being in a new place, being in a new milieu, it just makes sentences. Going to an art museum in that place, going to a botanical garden and seeing the weird things that grow and pretending I lived somewhere else. Because it's really being a kid, as I was in a military family. My dad was in the Army, so we were stationed overseas. We were in like Thailand and Guam and during the Vietnam War. And I just like was on my own a lot, you know, because I didn't really get along in a military school.
I can imagine.
That would not surprise you very much. But so I did spend a lot of time in Magic Land, you know, and just going, you know, when we lived in Japan, we were on a base that was very far north because they were spying across the strait to Vladivostok, you know, and it was a CIA kind of thing. And they invited us there because we just were so white. And so from Oregon, because back then we didn't have Kurt Cobain, like no one knew where Oregon was. There's no such thing as a latte. Like, oh my God.
Gosh, Halls, that's funny. And like so interesting, so fascinating, because it really is. Talk about a snapshot of a different time.
Yeah.
We were the dorks of the United States. I mean, really, the Pacific Northwest. It was just really lumber and.
But you just said you were also on the northwest side of Japan too, right?
Yeah.
That's right. We were in Hokkaido.
Yeah, of course they were.
Sapporo. Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
It's so crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is currently inspiring you right now? Like when you sit down and write, and you are, I will have to say, quite disciplined about that. Not rigorously to the exclusion of anything else that's going in your life currently, but you're very disciplined. So what currently are you inspired by when you're sitting down and writing?
Okay. Well, I have to be disciplined because it takes me so long, Mindy.
But that's what I love about you.
Because I have to pick the thing. You know, I have so many things that I have to decide, and then I have to do it. So I right now I'm working on a story that it involves characters that are from Bali. So they're from LA and Bali, and so I'm reading a lot about Balinese spirituality. So I'm reading this book called Sekala Niskala, meaning seen and unseen. So the Balinese believe, and don't want to reduce it here because I'm reading it in a book and it's incredible. But they believe that the seen and the unseen world are all happening simultaneously. Yes. So everything has this double meaning, and it's great. So I'm working on that right now. My story, the characters that are, when someone dies, you're sort of awaiting their spirit to return.
Right.
Yes.
So, and their spirit can return in the form of an animal or anything. So it involves this family that's lost the patriarch, and they're sort of waiting for him to return. They're from Los Angeles. And anyway, but so
yeah,
what I'm working on.
I get tingly. And it just, I mean, you really do. Your work, I find, obviously is so grounding and relatable, but also just, you wonder, like, where did she come up with this? Like, it's so, and not magical, but it does just out of the ethers, which is, to me, amazing fiction, right? I mean, it takes you somewhere. You want to go somewhere. Yeah. So, what are you obsessed with right now? Is there anything that I know you have you're pulled so many different directions between Liday, which we'll talk about, your work, your family, obviously, the animal menagerie.
It's again witch obsession, but I am I'll just give you so by bullet points, I am finishing my book.
Yes.
So it's a collection of short stories. So that's what the obsession is right now.
Good.
And I have 3 more to go. So there's this one, and I'm reading about Bali, and the other one is, I used to play the flute.
I didn't know that.
As a kid, and I was never that attracted to it, except my best friend also played the flute, and we just like to be able to go practice, in the 70s public school room where they had like the pottery kiln and people's bikinis, because it was the 70s, so we would just go and kind of practice our flutes. And I never really committed to it, but I have been really into taking it up again because some characters in a story of mine are dealing with the flute. And so I'm doing some research on flutes. And now flutes are insane. They're really interesting. Like, it's the oldest instrument. The original flute was made out of a human shin bone, like the throat of a vulture, the elbow of a swan's wing. I mean, it's really poetic. It's amazing.
No kidding. And it's in the zeitgeist now, obviously, because of Lizzo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
Yeah.
She's sort of popularized it currently.
Yeah.
Reinvigorated the flute, shall we say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. So that is also inspiring. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And finishing the book. And then, it's interesting. What also is obsessing me right now is I study Kung Fu and Qigong. And so I've been practicing that for a few years with a Kung Fu master.
Yes. Whose name is? Give him a little props.
Stephen Lee is his name. Yeah. And he actually studied with the teacher of Bruce Lee, and there's a long, kind of trajectory. But his teacher from China, the Grandmaster Bing, who lives in central China on Wudang Mountain, which supposedly is where Tai Chi was invented back in the ancient times. He's been doing Zoom classes.
Oh, so, Bing Zoom. Bing Zoom.
That's amazing.
So I'm doing Bing Zoom, and I'm learning things. So everything that you do sort of softly in Qigong has this martial application. So it all seems very fluid and everything like this. And so we learned this new move, this kind of move. I can't show you on Zoom, but you kind of crouch and you're going like this. He's like, this is called Dragon Pulls the Pearls Up from the Sea. And I was like, oh, what is that? And he's like, well, you can tear two people's testicles off.
Go Bing.
I love it. Yeah. Friendly dragon.
Oh my gosh. Obsessed. Currently obsessed.
Yeah. Obsessed.
Well,
okay.
And this is you poke your eyes out, pull the hair off, just, I love it.
Kind of fascinating.
I love it.
Well, I'm going to take a minute to give you guys both a little breather and mention something else that we know that you're pretty passionate about, but we want to make sure that our listeners know as well. So forgive me, I'm going to read a little bit because it's fairly informative and I want to make sure I get all this right. So Mindy and I decided that today's episode of Mondays with Mindy is going to be sponsored by the nonprofit Liday Haiti. Liday, meaning both leader and idea in Haitian Creole, is an organization that uses the arts, psychosocial support, and education to rebuild resiliency and empower at-risk adolescent girls and marginalized youth in rural Haiti who have been denied education. Founded by Holiday, Rain Wilson, her husband, and Dr. Katherine Adams, Liday aims to contribute to creating a world where girls have equal access to quality education, a sense of their own voices, and the innate gifts that give them the empowerment to use and achieve their educational goals, support one another, and contribute positively to the betterment of their local and global communities. Liday also provides counseling, health education, and skill building that aid their students with transition from adolescence to adulthood, something very important we all know. Liday trains and employs locals within the Haitian communities it serves and collaborates with grassroots organizations and schools to meet local needs and foster community support. Operating during this challenging time, we ask our listeners to consider, like we have, to contributing and making a donation to this organization at lidayhaiti.org. That's LIDEHITI.org. And I will put links to that on the show notes of mondayswithmindy.com for this episode. So if you're interested in learning more about Liday, there will be information there, more information for you to connect with Holiday herself, see more of her projects, her books, and other things. But most importantly, particularly right now, make a contribution if you can. It goes a long way.
Oh, thank you so much.
Did you ever think you'd be a sponsor?
No, I didn't think a fiction writer and a nonprofit would sponsor. I love it. It's wonderful.
And here we are.
So I know that, a huge part of your personage from a very early age is always about giving back and being a part of the community, meaning the world community. But how did you find your way to Haiti and deciding to actually, that with all the other organizations out there, a piece was missing to form Liday?
Yeah. Well, this is interesting because I think it just goes back to like all the women in my family. So all of the women in my family were school teachers, like pioneer school teachers. So like my great aunt taught literacy in the lumber camps, and my other aunt was worked with the Spanish Basque community in Southern Oregon. Lots of my maternal grandmother started the first school for differently abled kids in Portland, Oregon, which was called the Perry Center. And so different, kids that were on the spectrum had different learning issues. So there was always this sense of we're learning as much as we can, and we want to share what we love, which is learning. And in my family, it always ended up to be writing or language. My grandmother was a Latin scholar, and she used to ride around on the train and like recite Marcus Aurelius, and and like I just
Wow.
this in
What?
Oregon on the train.
What a character!
I know. And so, and they would travel. They traveled all around. My Aunt Ruth was like 4'11", and she went all around the world by herself. And so it was always sort of to find what was, you'd find something you were passionate about and be of service. So I always wanted to, in addition to write, I wanted to teach creative writing because it was just natural to me, and I loved the workshop environment, and it's just a part of my process to always have creative writing workshops happening at the same time I'm writing. So after my son was born and my husband got a job on television and there was a little more resources, there were lots of opportunities to be of service, right? A lot of people writing in, what do you want to do? And we didn't know. So we were invited to go visit some schools in Haiti with this organization called the Mona Foundation. Yeah. And they make lots of, they support local programs that are started in the community, are run by the community, and empower the community to make the decisions for within the context. So they fund all sorts of programs all over the world, supporting these various educational initiatives. So we visited their schools, and my husband and I were completely, we were like, I want to commit to this. And I ended up speaking to a lot of because I spoke French. My high school did not have art. And so I was always sort of starving, if you will, for creative writing or theater or just anything, right? So so I studied a lot of language. So I took Russian and German and French, and it was a language magnet, right? And so where I could, I spoke French and Creole mixed with the girls, and I started asking, do you have the arts here? And they were like, no, we don't have the arts, but I'd like to be a singer, and she started talking about her dreams and things. And I noticed everyone getting very excited. And the teacher came over and said, what did she just say to you? And I said, well, she said she wanted to be a singer. And he's like, well, she's never spoken before. We didn't know she talked. We thought she was, mute.
Wow.
And it just, something went off in me at that point. I was like, what could, I don't know what it would be yet. Would I come back and tell, listen to oral histories, whatever. Then the earthquake happened, right?
Yeah.
And many of the places where we were destroyed. And a number of people were homeless. But yet the school where we visited, because it had been built in the community and was run by the community and not by outside aid, or the very weak, Ministry of Education, which was compromised.
Yes.
They could use it as a field hospital and a maternity ward, and it just kept functioning, right? And kids kept going to school. So I kept in touch with the people at the school, and they sent me this email that they had received about a UN-funded program that was seeking artists, creative writers, painters to come to do a 2-week workshop with women and girls ages 12 to 30 in a tent camp in Port-au-Prince. And this was the one that had been supported by Sean Penn.
Yes.
And 70,000 people were living on a golf course. And in these, tarp tents during rainy season. And they said, come down, you can sleep in a tent and teach creative writing. And of course I was like, wow, I mean, aren't there other things probably that are more important than
not really.
Not
right?
Really. Right.
Yeah.
Not really. So I'm like, I got on the phone right away and I'm like, can I come? Are there spots available? They're like, yep.
Yes.
So I met who is now our executive director. Her name is Dr. Katherine Adams, and she's a writer herself and also an educational psychologist, a trauma specialist. You know, she has a lot of different degrees in working with populations under stress, you know,
Right.
and how to create pedagogy and support.
Yeah.
And so she's worked in a lot of really extreme environments, like in Jordan and Lebanon, and she's an incredible human being. And so I met her, and she led the delegation of us. So it was myself and a photographer for the New York Times and a painter. And then my husband heard about it, and he came along as an actor. And for 2 weeks, we taught in this 20 by 20 tent. You know, fiction
Creative
is
writing,
in one corner,
creative writing and improv and a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, all mixed together, and everyone kind of rotated around. And what we saw over that period was just this incredible transformation. So everyone came in and they had been, you know, lost everyone or everything. And women just started creating community. So immediately it was like we'd show up, and then 80 other girls would be doing the exercises outside the tent. And then the boys would be like, hey, what's going on with those girls? I want to do that too. So then everybody would do it. And it lasted for 1.5 years after we left. You know, everyone started to get rehomed back in. So it sort of came apart. But 5 years later, we had a reunion with these women, and they all had been like, this taught us, you know, this reminded us who we were. This showed us, you know, the power that was within us. It was a boost that we needed. We found,
once again, preaching the arts are necessary.
Absolutely.
Like, and vital.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you know, cut to me, who taught at many universities and had fellowships. And I love teaching at the university. But what I mostly love is watching what the arts do in communities where there is not access to the many resources, right? So right now, my work in Haiti is working on Zoom with our staff, doing creative writing workshops and professional development. And then they are keeping in touch with all the girls in the community. So we have 14 different village communities. All of the facilitators live in the community itself. And then it's an incredible thing. We found out, you know, bit by bit, what it means to really have an educational initiative, because I think it's a lot more complicated than, hey, build a school.
I think if you guys knew what obstacles you would face, I'm not going to say you wouldn't have done it, but, you know, sometimes ignorance is bliss when you start something like that. Yeah. I mean, it's just, and dealing with the government, plural, that you've had to deal with, and the regimes that you've had to deal with. It's gnarly. I don't know, have a better word than that.
Mindy, it was punk rock is basically the deal.
I mean, call it by its name. Yeah. I think it still is sometimes, depending on how the government is going on and the civil unrest down there. It's very volatile.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what's sort of interesting is, you know, when I first came into the country and I saw the women doing everything, right? They were in the fields and, you know, carrying the water and all of it. It was like, well, empowering these women in the community is going to have this just unforeseen impact. Yeah. And now, you know, there's like 60 scholarship students, 5 women that started out at like age 15 that did not even have a second grade equivalency are qualified to go to university. Like, just, you know, being able to work with all the different obstacles, because it's really the whole picture, and engaging the family, engaging the community. Like, all the moms came and said, we want to learn how to read. We want to come to the workshops. Amazing. So now the daughters teach the moms, and, you know, the grandmothers, and anyway. But if you look at nonprofits, a lot of, especially international nonprofits, they're employing men from within the country. They're not like 100. We have 99% women, you know. It's pretty exciting. And I just learn so much every day from their incredible ideas and resilience. And it's pretty amazing.
So
Yeah.
what tools do you use to keep the writer, creative, passionate person that you are with the also the strong woman who has responsibilities and real balancing act?
Yeah.
A few
problems.
Animals to take care of, like that stuff.
Yeah, just a few. By the way, one of Holiday's greatest gifts that she's ever given me, well, I don't think she gave me. I think I took it and she said, okay, is my auntie-hood of all those animals. Yeah, I don't even think I asked permission. I just said, I am.
No, I can't even remember now a time when you were not their aunt. So you're not going anywhere.
But no, not in their lives. But what do you do? What are the tools that you are at your disposal as an artist to keep your creativity viable?
Just, I know when I'm the most creative, and that is from 10:30 until 3. And so if I'm doing anything other than either writing or staring at the wall and looking at cool things to draw or make, then I don't feel good in my skin. And it's not like I love what Isaac Mizrahi was saying about, like, it's not about enjoyment. Like, I do, I'm with my animals and they give me incredible enjoyment and stuff like that. But my creative time there's a lot of friction. Yeah. There's a lot of, I need to kind of be able to feel everything. I don't get to just, because I have to be able to go with people that are doing really questionable things. And, I'm trying to I'm living with the problem,
Yeah. Yes.
And, one problem is opening up a greater, more complicated problem in a lot of cases or something, So, so I do that. And in order to maintain that, I also run away from home once a month. I go somewhere for 3 or 4 days, and then I don't have to shower and I don't have to be responsible. And so I have a lot of support in, my family and my son's a little older now and stuff like that. But
and you're all creatives in that household of yours. So I think there is a level of understanding of that, whatever that means to each of you guys. Right.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because my son is all about, music is his thing, and math and Chinese. Like, I couldn't get onto this link because he switched all my language into Chinese. So I'm trying to put my Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah. I need to come up with a better word than amazing, because it's really, I'm awestruck by Walter a little bit, I gotta say. Yeah. He's all inspiring.
So he needs kind of his music time, and he's writing his music, and then, Rain is doing his thing. And so I like to go away and just be feral. Be like one of the animals, Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So in an ideal world, which we are in, because I just make it so, what has been, I don't even want to say unobtainable. What's a dream? What's a dream that you can share with us? A future, if I could have anything, it would be in regard to your writing, your career, your whatever, your personage.
Yeah, I would just like more time. I mean, I would just like, I love, like, I wish days were like 80 hours long, I mean, and I don't mean that like I'm so busy or whatever. I just love filling as much of the day as I can, you know what I mean? And so honestly, I'm at a point now where I would say, what's the next thing? Because I'm really I've never been in such a place where I'm so able to create in the way that I want to. I'm feeling more, I would say that my first book was more like monologues with benefits, like voice and first person. And this book it takes a lot more layers and there's a lot more kind of working with almost creative nonfiction in a sense, and my own life bleeding in, and there's just more strange detours and things. So my next project, I'd really like to write actually creative nonfiction about my family and my life.
Yes,
so
please.
I'm kind of getting to that, because every day that we've been in quarantine, I've actually been going through my grandfather's archive, because I have this whole trunk of stuff like letters, and I'm finding out all this stuff about my people that I had no idea.
Wow.
I love it.
So,
well, you know, I am eagerly anticipating any and all writings. I can't wait to just take the biggest slice. I'm so excited. I just think you are such a talent, and more importantly, one of the just dearest people in my life.
Well, thank you. We did sit at the Grand Canyon together. We did like a first pass of a wonder of the world, you know.
We've done some things, but there's much more to do, and I will be by your side or hanging on your coattails, whichever one needs to happen.
Well, listen, I'll put up on your website some places to get stories in the next couple months, because there's 3 different things coming out.
Absolutely.
So we can add those in.
I hope I've covered them in the intro, but if I haven't, regardless, we'll put it up.
Definitely
we'll
hook
put
those
everything
up in the
up.
show notes. Yeah.
Holiday, thank you so much for this insanely fantastic Monday with Mindy episode.
Oh, thank you.
I adore you.
This was the best Monday ever. Nice to meet you, Christian.
It's nice meeting you. Thank you very much for joining us. We're looking forward to sharing you with our audience. As we mentioned earlier in the show, go to mondayswithmindy.com. There will be lots of information about Holiday on there, as well as the charity that we mentioned, the books that she's working on now, her past books, and some other work that she's going to be contributing to. So go to the website, check it out, get in touch, stay in touch, follow her on Instagram, all that good stuff. And once again, we want to say thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time. And until next time.
It was a pleasure to sponsor you.
Yes.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, Holiday Reinhorn.